Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 67 of the BoxHard Podcast, number 67. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined this week by Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how are you doing?
I'm good, Joey. How are you?
Same as always, my friend. Very good. So we're going to dive straight into part one. Part one is the review part where we review the fights from last week. If you've joined us before, you will know that already. So we're going to start with a card that was televised on terrestrial TV, ITV. I believe it was ITV4. This one took place over in the Guildhall in Preston, Lancashire, United Kingdom. In no particular order, I'm just going to mention a couple of the fight results here. Robbie Davies Jr., who's a real talented fighter, one that has been linked with the likes of O'Hara Davies, which obviously, you know, both having the same surname, it would be a good fight, that one. Both undefeated. Robbie Davies Jr. actually knocked out his opponent Zoltan Cesarbo, who, you know, he's got a record of 13-3. He lost as well to O'Hara Davies. He gave him quite a good fight while it lasted. It was a little too competitive, to be honest. Robbie Davies Jr., to be honest, it was mostly one-way traffic throughout that one, but it was a good fight in spurts, you know. And as I say, Robbie Davies Jr. gets a good knockout in round 9, so he proceeds now to 15-0. Fantastic there, and also, you know, he's a WBA Continental Super Lightweight champion, so great stuff there for Robbie Davies Jr. Also on that card, a man who got it was a bit of a controversial decision win over a guest who was on our show last week, Mr. John Ryder. So Jack Armfield was on this card, 22-2. He picked up a TKO in round 11 over his opponent Mick Hall, who had a record of 13-1. Jack Armfield retained his WBA International Middleweight Championship in good fashion. The bout was halted between rounds as well because Hall had, Hall, the opponent of Armfield, suffered a large swelling to the forehead. So, and it really swelled up as well. It was pretty horrible. So, we don't like to see sights like that too often, but a good win there for Jack Armfield. Also on that bill, Zach Parker moved to 10-0 with a TKO in round 4. His opponent, Bradley Price, actually announced his retirement following the defeat. So that means that Bradley Price will finish with a record of 38 wins and 22 losses in a 60-fight career. So good stuff for him. Also on the bill, undefeated heavyweight Nick Webb. He moves to double figures now, 10-0 for him. His opponent was knocked out via TKO in the 3rd round. His opponent had a winning record of 6-2. His name was Chris Healy. So Nick Webb now 10-0, as I said. And Atif Shafiq was also on this bill. He actually suffered I'm going to say it was an upset. It wasn't, it was a shock loss. He actually got TKO'd in the 1st round. It was scheduled for 6. And it was a big knockout as well. It really was. A bit of, questionable matchmaking here. Atif Shafiq took on a guy who was 5-0 with 4 knockouts, undefeated. Eastern European, and he came over here and just done the business on him. Simple as that. I don't know what that was all about. It was a bit of a, I'm sure they could have found possibly an opponent who may have been a little bit, less of a risk, or they may have known a little bit more about him, or even someone, if it was going to be a risky fight, get someone in who we may actually have heard of. This guy's just come over here and done the business, and he flies back to Eastern Europe. And Atif Shafiq here got to go back to the drawing board. 16-2 his record now. He's not had a great time at mixing it when he's moved up in level a little bit. So we wish Atif Shafiq all the best anyway. That's really it for the UK. We're now going to go over to the Sun National Bank Centre in Trenton, New Jersey. One fight to mention on this bill. He's still, I suppose he's going to be a legend. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, I'd imagine, for sure. He was out of the ring for 3 years, and he returned with a spectacular TKO in round 2 over Jorge Luis Mangula. Jorge Luis Mangula had a record of 12-7. He's now 12-8, and Zab Judah, the old cat, moves to 43 professional wins. Of course, he's got the 9 losses, but a great win there for Zab Judah. He looked pretty good. As I say, it was only a 2-round contest in the end. It was scheduled for 10. It didn't need any of those rounds, but Zab Judah looked pretty good. He really did. And I know that, why is he really still boxing? He hasn't got anything else to prove. He's been world champion multiple times, but I tell you what, he put in a good account of himself there. It has to be said. Another fight to mention over the weekend. This one was also in the USA. This one was in San Antonio, Texas, at the Al-Zafar Shrine. Never even heard of that venue, but I like it. Brian Vera moved to 25 wins. He's, he's not the best opponent in the world. He's not the best fighter in the world, but he is a man that we must mention. He's been in a few big fights, so he proceeds to 25 wins. Of course, he's got 11 losses. He picked up a TKO in round 2 as well. His opponent was Larry Smith with a record of 10-31, so a decent win there for Brian Vera. So his year starts on a high. That's really it for the meaningful fights that happened last week. That's really it. There wasn't too much on. So, Ayaz, what I'm going to do now is I want to bring you in with the news now, because we're going to leave a few little bits to part 2. Part 2, we will begin with the preview part, and then there's also a funny name fighter segment that we haven't done for a long time, and we're going to bring it back on this week's show, because I've gone through the names and there is some seriously good contenders here. So, Ayaz, please come in with this week's news.
Nicola Adams has signed a professional contract with Frank Warren.
Yes, this is it's a good move. It is a good move. A lot of people are dismissive of women boxing. I myself am not the biggest fan of it, but I do definitely think that women should be given an equal playing field in a sport, in any sport really. Whether it be football or soccer for our American viewers, or boxing, mixed martial arts, anything like that. They should be given a level playing field. It's only right. We've seen Eddie Hearn bring in women's boxing. He's been pushing that for a short while with, linking up with Katie Taylor, who's a fantastic talent. And, the arch rival of Eddie Hearn is Frank Warren, which we all know, and he's decided to go and do pretty much the same thing with another fantastic athlete, a fantastic female athlete, and also, a gold medalist from the Olympics. So it's brilliant. I remember how good she did in 2012 in the Olympics, and also in 2016. So she's been a fantastic flag bearer for our nation, and I'm actually excited. I've took a like to Nicola Adams ever since she, impressed me at the 2012 Olympics in London, and I've been a fan of her ever since, to be honest. I think she's a great person. I've seen her on a lot of TV shows and game shows and stuff, and she's got a great sense of humour, so it seems. So I'm actually really interested for this. I really am. Katie Taylor's unbelievably talented, but Nicola Adams is really good too. So this is going to be, it's exciting. It really is. I can say I'm actually excited for both the two women that are in the spotlight right now, Katie Taylor and Nicola Adams. I'm excited for both of their futures. So I'm going to definitely, myself, along with you, Ayaz, and the rest of us, we should all look out for these women, because they're doing, they're putting it all on the line just like the men are.
Mm-hmm. Josh Warrington will be fighting in Leeds on 13th of May.
Yes, Josh Warrington. Obviously, we know that he previously left Eddie Hearn not too long ago now, and he signed with Frank Warren. He was one of Eddie Hearn's biggest ticket sellers, if not the biggest ticket seller. We all know that Eddie Hearn likes a ticket seller, and in Leeds he is an absolute superstar. So yeah, I think it was a bit of a blow for Eddie Hearn when he signed with Frank Warren, but Eddie Hearn's got so much talent on his books right now that obviously Josh Warrington felt that he'd have better time or better success with Frank Warren. So there's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, I'm excited for this one. I really am. I think that Frank Warren with BT Sport, he's definitely he's opened a new venture. He's into boxing now, and I'm excited for what the future holds. The only thing I was a bit annoyed about was that we've got to wait that long. May is still, well, it's just under 4 months away. So it is quite a long wait. You know, he's been out of the ring now, Josh Warrington. By the time the fight comes around, he's been out of the ring for quite a long time. So, yeah, I'm excited for it, but I just wish it was a little bit sooner. That's all I can say about that one.
Mitchell Smith is to fight a rematch against George Jupp on 6th of May.
Yes, obviously, you know, George Jupp just came in there against Mitchell Smith, and he caused a huge upset. He really did. I remember that night. Mitchell Smith just could not get away from George Jupp's jab. You know, he just couldn't get round that jab. He really couldn't. So, you know, obviously Jupp came into that fight, as I say, as the challenger, as the underdog, got the win, and then he ended up going out to South America. I remember when he just, like, that win kind of, like, threw him straight into a interim WBO World Super Featherweight title fight, and he fought against Miguel Berchelt, who's a fantastic fighter, as we know, you know, a real banger as well, and obviously he got TKO'd in that fight. It was all too much, you know. He was down, I think it was 3 times in that fight, 3 or 4 times, and you know, he was in too deep. But yeah, he was just marching on from that win over Mitchell Smith. He just kept marching on, and yeah, it was a little bit too soon for him, that world title fight. But Mitchell Smith, as I say, on the night he just couldn't do enough. He was terrible, to be completely honest, and I think that he won't disagree with that. Although on the scorecards it was very, very close. There was like a round in it, you know. So it was very generous judging in favour of Mitchell Smith, but he still lost, and that was the right verdict. So he gets his rematch. Obviously they fought in December of 2015. So it's been quite a while now, but the only thing that worries me is Mitchell Smith has only had the one fight since, and it was against a guy who had a record of 7-4. That was obviously in October of last year. So he was out the ring for 10 months, and now by the time the fight comes round, it would have been another 7 months. So it would have mean that he has only had, you know, one fight in 17 months, and it's against a guy who's got a record of 7-4. You know, 7-4. It's a winning record, but let's be honest, he's a journeyman. George Jupp, on the other hand, he's had 2 fights since that fight. One fight was a good win over Jordan Ellison, and the other fight, as I say, was in Mexico, you know, for a world title, which he went 6 rounds with the champion. So, you know, the experience, again, the inactivity it could play a factor here. I mean, George Jupp, although he's only had 2 fights in the 17-month period, which it will be when fight night comes around, he's mixed it at a much higher level in that time than Mitchell Smith has done his whole career. So this could play a factor. It's definitely, you know, it's definitely piqued my interest. But I hope that Mitchell Smith can get the job done to right that wrong, because we know he's a good fighter. We've seen him link up recently with Adam Booth. I'm excited to see, you know, how that works when they're in there against these better, you know, the better opposition. So yeah, I'm definitely going to keep my eyes peeled on that one.
Tommy Langford will fight Craig Cunningham on April 22nd.
Yes, Tommy Langford, obviously, you know, this is the first defence of his British title, the title that Chris Eubank Jr. vacated. So, you know, Tommy Langford, he wanted that fight with Eubank Jr. and, you know, he didn't get it. As I say, he's now the champion. This is his first defence, and he's taking on Craig Cunningham. Craig Cunningham, the man who got a shock win over Anthony Ogogo just recently. So, you know, that is, even though Ogogo just didn't seem himself that night, everything that Ogogo threw, Craig Cunningham had an answer for and more. So I think this is a tough first defence for Tommy Langford, but we know he's a good fighter. It's an intriguing fight. It's another great fight that Frank has announced. You know, I'm looking forward to this Box Nation / BT Sports schedule. I really am.
Liam Smith will fight Liam Williams on April the 8th.
Yes, this one is really the best of all the announcements that Frank Warren has announced this week. We know that he's announced a lot of things, you know, to do with the schedule, and this one is the fight that I'm looking forward to most. A lot of people criticised Box Nation at first. A lot of people said that they wouldn't last long, and they've done brilliant. You know, they've smashed it. I'm a proud subscriber to Box Nation. Yeah, the international stuff they do is fantastic. Now they're embarking on a new chapter here with BT Sport, as I've said before. Yeah, great fights that I've seen announced, and I'm looking forward to this one just more than any of the others. You know, this is a great fight. Liam Smith, a good fighter, you know, even though he lost convincingly against Canelo and got stopped, he's still a good fighter, man. He's a good fighter. He's very underrated, I think, because he's the only Smith brother with Frank Warren, and the other 3 Smith brothers are with Eddie Hearn, which, you know, his fighters do tend to become bigger stars. It's just the way it's been up until now. We may see a change with BT Sport involved now. So, yeah, it's a great fight. Liam Williams, obviously a Welsh boy, he's undefeated as well. He's looking brilliant. He had a fantastic year last year, 2016, and I think it's a brilliant fight. It could be the right timing for Liam Williams, or, you know, if Liam Smith turns up on his A game, I think he could win it. It's a real tough fight. I cannot wait to see that one. I truly can't.
Badu Jack has vacated his WBC World Super Middleweight title.
Yes, we talked about this last week, and actually by the time the show went out, he'd already vacated it, but we'd already recorded the show, you know, and by the time it was posted, it had already been vacated. So it was bad timing for us last week. We knew about it, but we've chose, you know, this was the next time that we're going to be putting a show out, so we thought that we'd have to talk about it on this week's show. Badu Jack's obviously moving up to light heavyweight, so the WBC title will be vacant. Well, it is vacant currently, talking to you now. And, yeah, it really looks like Callum Smith will be fighting Anthony Dirrell for that belt. So, you know, that's going to be a good fight, and we'll listen out for an announcement on that one. It's a great fight. It's a bit of a 50-50 in my opinion. Some especially in the United States. I know that the favourite over there would be Anthony Dirrell without a doubt.
David Hay has joined up with Richard Schaefer.
Yes, they formed some sort of new promotional banner. We've seen David Hay, you know, involved as a promoter in a few different boxers' careers before, and we know that, you know, Richard Schaefer was really, you know, the front runner of Golden Boy boxing until some sort of, you know, behind the scenes argument or whatever happened between him and Oscar De La Hoya. They parted ways. Oscar De La Hoya, seeing as he was, you know, the main man in charge of Golden Boy, that, you know, the main man behind the company, he's obviously stayed with the company. Richard Schaefer decided to walk, and he's been quiet for a couple of years. You know, no one's seen him, and then all of a sudden he pops up in London with a press conference, and him and David Hay are working together now for what they're going to be calling Haymaker Ringstar Promotions. So they're saying, I've seen an interview with David Hay, they're saying that basically, you know, they're going to try to sign fighters that are basically just like David Hay, ones with, you know, big personas, slightly controversial, I suppose, big names, not just young, undefeated fighters with potential to be world champions. They're looking at those fighters as well, but they're also looking at fighters who have been world champions, fighters that we know of, fighters that are household names, not just in the UK but also in the US, and they're going to be fighting over in the UK. So, you know, we've seen David Hay sort of work with various different promoters, not always to avail. We've seen, do you remember when he came back for the first fight against Mark Demori, he'd signed a promotional contract with those two brothers, the Salter brothers, which, you know, I bet loads of our listeners will remember them. I mean, what happened to them? They just completely vanished off the face of the earth. I actually was out in London not that long ago, a few months back. I was going to a birthday party, and I actually saw them, you know, the Salter brothers, coming out of an underground tube station. You know, I haven't seen them since the David Hay fight. They just jumped straight in a black taxi, and that was it. And I probably won't see him again. What happened there? It obviously didn't go too well. The event looked like a success, but there's been no mention at all. And I'd love to know what even happened. You know, why did they part ways? Nothing has been said about it. So he joins up with Richard Schaefer. Richard Schaefer is a man who knows the boxing business inside out. You know, as I say, his success with Golden Boy, you know, you cannot knock that. It was fantastic. They became the number one boxing promotional team in the world, let's be honest. So, you know, David Hay won't be able to pull any moves here. I'm not saying that he would, but I'm saying that the Salter brothers clearly had no idea about boxing, you know, the boxing business. It's a hard one to reap success in, but, you know, this is going to be interesting. And really, I think it's Richard Schaefer more the pusher here than David Hay. I think Richard Schaefer wants to have a crack at the UK market, especially now while the boxing's booming. Thank you to, our very own British promoters for that reason that the boxing is booming over here. But he's going to have a crack over here, and it's definitely brilliant for British boxing fans. It really is. It means that we're going to have guys from the other side of the water, America and perhaps Mexico, perhaps, and those fighters will be fighting over here. So it's great. We're going to hopefully have some household names coming over to the UK, and it's going to be interesting to see what events that they're going to put on. I know that at the moment there's been no established broadcaster. We've got no idea what channel it's going to be on. ITV are doing their thing with the Eubanks. Sky with Eddie Hearn, BT Sport and Box Nation with Frank Warren. Channel 5 seem like they don't want to know any boxing at the moment. Same for BBC. Dave, who knows what's going to happen here. But one thing that we should remember is a lot of people have noticed that Chris Eubank Jr. and David Haye are certainly hanging out a lot across social media. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of partnership, some sort of Eubank possibly getting involved in David Haye's thing. So that could be interesting. Again, just because two people take a picture together every now and then doesn't mean that they're going to start doing business together. But that is definitely one to keep an eye on. It could be yet another promoter stamped on the resume of Chris Eubank Jr.'s career. He's been with everyone, so why not? But I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited to see what they can bring to the British public. I really am.
And finally, Lawrence Okolie has turned professional with Eddie Hearn.
Yes, a man who went into the amateurs really with, not much experience at all and did really, really well. He came up against a fantastic fighter, obviously, the guy who ended up going on to win the bronze medal. So Lawrence Okolie's a guy that, he went in there with virtually, not virtually no experience, but so little experience. I think he's only had about 20-something fights and he's turned pro already. So to go out there with that little experience under your belt, to go out there in Rio, put it all on the line and fight for your country. Not just fight for boxing fans, but fight for the nation, fight for Britain, be a part of Team GB. He's got to be commended for that. So for me, I'm a big fan of his. I know that he's very, very close with Anthony Joshua. Just recently, there was a lot of rumours that he'd knocked Anthony Joshua down or knocked Anthony Joshua out in sparring. Obviously, he's very noble. He's basically said that, he's not going to talk about any of that. I don't think he confirmed nor denied, but we all know the old rule, sparring, it all stays in the gym. What happens in the gym stays in the gym. So, yeah, Lawrence Okolie's a guy who we're going to see him obviously turn pro with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, very, very good at moving his fighters. Everybody knows that. And, yeah, it's another Olympian for his stable. He seems to like picking up these Olympians, and they always have done pretty well, apart from Luke Campbell, who's hit a couple of blunders at the moment. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I definitely wish Lawrence Okolie all the best. A good fighter from London as well. So, yeah, all the best to Lawrence Okolie. Definitely try to get him on this show very soon.
And that's it for the news.
Okay, Ayaz, top man. Brilliant stuff. So, as I say there, part one, we spoke about the reviewing. We spoke about the fights from last week. Just before we ended the discussions, all the talking that me and Ayaz do, we talked about the news. Ayaz brought us in with some glamorous news from this week's boxing world. Before we end part one, there's one last thing to do, and that, of course, is to welcome our first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first guest. It's none other than Mr. Jamel Herring. Jamel, welcome back on the show.
Hey, it's good to be back, man. It's good to be back.
Excellent stuff, man. The pleasure's mine. Now, Jamel, we spoke to you just after your last fight, which obviously didn't go to plan for you. We haven't spoke to you for 29 weeks. What have you been up to in all this time out, and how excited are you to return to the ring in February?
Oh, well, I took some time off, just to recover, get my mind together. But overall, for those 29 weeks, I've just been, enjoying time with the family because I've been busy the whole, for majority of 2016 in terms of training camps and working out. So, after the Shafikov fight, I just took some time off, enjoyed, working with the family, having a great time with the family, enjoying the holidays. Christmas, New Year's was great. But since then, I've been right back in the gym, getting ready for the getting ready to make a statement in this new year.
And I've got to ask you, how has camp gone so far? And has the loss given you some added hunger? You know, some people say you learn more from a loss than you do from a win sometimes.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, the loss to me was actually a great lesson in my career in terms of where I need to be at on that level. You know, so I took a lot out of that fight. You know, I didn't take it as a negative thing. I mean, of course, we all want to win, but you know, sometimes you could take positive out of a negative situation. So, you know, that loss is just like you pointed out, it just made me hungrier, and I'm just anxious to get back in the ring.
Absolutely. And last time out, obviously, the loss, you suffered your first loss to Denis Shafikov. He went on to face Richard Comey. I wanted to ask you, did you manage to see that fight at all?
I didn't get to really catch it, but I read everything that goes on in the boxing world. So, you know, I read a lot of reviews on the fight. I heard from a lot of different people out there how the fight went, and you know, I congratulate him. And as we know now, he's set to fight basically my brother Robert Easter Jr. And I think that's gonna be a great fight. And like, you know, no hard feelings. I wish him all the success in the world. But like I said, I appreciate him for giving me a chance to share the ring with him, and you know, I just wish him the best in the future.
Yeah, and we should also point out that today is Robert Easter Jr.'s birthday, so a little happy birthday.
Yes. I wish him happy birthday earlier today.
Excellent, man, excellent. And you're fighting on the 10th of February on the same bill as Robert Easter and also Rashay Warren. Obviously, you said that you've got your opponent now. It's a guy that fought Diego Magdaleno last out in October.
Yes, Art, I believe it is pronounced Art Hovhannisyan. Hard to pronounce, but tough, rugged guy. If you've been following my progress in the last couple of months, I've been having a lot of issues getting guys willing to fight. They asked me to fight Miguel Vasquez, you know, former IBF world champion. That didn't go together. Then they asked me to fight Ivan Redkach, who's basically been calling me out for the longest. And then once we had the opportunity to get in the ring together, he backed out, and instead he's fighting on the Leo Santa Cruz card, Frank and MTK, which is another great card I'm looking forward to watching. But he stepped out, but he's fighting on that card obviously. They asked if I would fight Edna Cherry. I agreed to it. He actually agreed to it, but we just couldn't. He wanted me to basically come down to 130. And for a fight coming back, I didn't think, you know, that was the right move. So we just, you know, moved on from that fight. But yeah, man, it's been a lot of ups and downs. But like, as you see, a lot of good names that I was willing to fight, you know, even for a comeback fight, you know, with a lot of good names. But I just couldn't get them to get in the ring with me.
You know, when you say, you know, names were put forward to you, is this names that Al Heyman's come up with?
Oh yeah, of course. If you really like pay attention to that, you obviously know those guys are actually, you know, under the same umbrella. Al advises all of us for the most part, and that was the whole plan. You know, if you heard rumors in the beginning of the year, you know, the plan was that Al was going to start matching fighters that he's advising against each other, which I had no problem. But as you see, most of the fighters in around my weight class, they didn't want to basically get in the ring, so now we had to step outside of the box, you know, to go find an opponent. But I'm just happy just to basically get back in there, but and hopefully get back on track where I believe that I belong to.
And Ivan Redkach, obviously, you know, I've seen him in there against Tevin Farmer. That was a good fight, to be honest. Tevin Farmer's obviously very talented. Yes. That would be a great fight for yourself, I believe, to find out, you know, that'll tell you a lot. If you can get a good win over him, that definitely speaks for itself.
Exactly.
I do want to ask you this. You've been matched with this guy that I won't take a stab at his name. I'm not going to try, but he's actually, even though he's a hard name to pronounce, he's a good fighter. You know, he's been in there. He's mixed it with some good guys. As you said, Magdaleno, a good fighter. What do you know about him aside from his very hard to pronounce name?
I've seen him fight before, and I know he comes to fight. You know, he may not have he's actually Armenian national amateur champion. I know he comes to fight. He may not have the best technique, but he's going to be basically there in your face. You know, trying to make it a rough fight, any possible chance to get. So, you know, it's a good test. It's going to give you some good rounds, some good work. Like I said, he's never been knocked out, so he's a durable fighter. But like I said, I'm just willing to go in there and fight, you know, whoever they put in front of me and get that W by any means.
And the last time I'm going to mention this now, obviously, you know, fighting Shafikov in your last fight, that was a step up from the previous opponents that you'd taken on at that stage. You've obviously had time to regroup. I know that you're in this boxing game for the big fights. I was going to ask you, when were you going to go at that same type of opponent? But I think you've kind of answered it already. This is a guy, as I say, he's mixed it in decent level. He's maybe a tiny, like, fringe under the level of Shafikov, admittedly. Of
course.
This is a guy, as you say, he comes to fight. He's a type of fighter that's going to bring the fight and you know, try and sort of jump all over you. So that is a perfect opponent that you need. Coming off of a loss like that to get back.
Exactly. Exactly. Because after the Shafikov fight, I spoke with Al Heyman. You know, he still believes a lot in me and a lot of my talent. So we came up with a game plan. And one thing I pointed out, you know, I never wanted to be baby. I never wanted to take the easy route, because I believe if you take an easy route all the way to the top, once you get to the top, you're going to be, you know, you're not going to be prepared. So I want to take those fights that's going to continue making me grow as I go along. So when I get back to that level, you know, I know how to handle it in a better situation.
Yeah, of course. And would you be searching for that rematch?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's just you know, the fighter in me. You know, I don't really care for the whole trying to be the perfect record and this, but I always want to basically test myself against the best out there. And you know, I always told myself as a fighter, and I always been honest with myself. You know, before I get to that level, I want to earn it, though. Before I get back up there, I want to earn it. You know, I want to fight the guys like, you know, the Mikey Garcias and, you know, the Shafikov again, and guys at that level. But I know as a fighter, I have to earn it and I have to prove that I belong at that level. So, you know, I'm taking the right precautions to get back to that level. But like I said, I don't want to be those guys that's been handed everything the easy way. You know, I want to earn everything I get.
Yeah, of course. And I must ask you about a fight happening this weekend. I know that you said that you were interested in the whole bill. I'm sure it's got your attention. Zlaticanin against Mikey Garcia for the WBC lightweight world title. Obviously, Zlaticanin the champion. A lot of people writing him off, but as much as I love Mikey Garcia, you know, this is a closer fight than people think, because obviously, you know, Garcia's been inactive. He's only had the one fight since he's come back. Zlatikanin's got a lot of momentum at the minute. He's just going through everyone. How do you see it going, Jamel?
Man, that you know why I'm looking at that fight very closely, because, you know, with both those guys being Al Heyman fighters, I had to be realistic and say, you know, I could end up eventually seeing one of those guys down the road. And, you know, Dejan is like basically like another Shafikov, but probably more aggressive. So I have to I'm looking at this guy and like, you know, I don't think he's a walkover. I mean, yeah, Mikey Garcia may be the favorite because of his past history and the things he's done, but, you know, this guy's hungry. And I think it's gonna be a tough fight. And on top of that, we don't really know if Mikey Garcia is really a true lightweight just yet. You know, he's been put down a couple of times. You know, and this guy, you know, we know this guy he's facing. And, you know, he's a very strong guy. So, you know, that's one fight I'm really looking forward to looking at. So I'm going to closely watch this fight. But like you said, I don't think a lot of people should write this guy off just yet.
No, me neither, not at all. As I say, we haven't spoken to you since before the first Crolla and Linares fight. I think I probably asked you about it last time we spoke, but obviously the fight's happened now. The result came out. Linares won. Now the rematch is on for March the 25th. I've got to ask you, Jamel, how do you see that one unfolding? It seemed like last time Linares had a little bit too much for Crolla, but he was, you know, he rolled back the years a little bit. He was a brilliant Linares that night.
Yeah, I watched that fight too. Matter of fact, it's funny. I was just watching that fight again last night.
Oh, okay, brilliant.
Because it was a good fight. It was a good fight. And once I heard the rematch was official, you know, I just decided to go back and watch the fight again. And I got a lot of respect for Anthony. You know, we go back and forth on Twitter. You know, we show each other respect. Got a lot of respect for him. I've been in the ring with Linares in terms of sparring when I was an amateur, you know, so I know what he's capable of. But I'm actually looking forward to the next fight between them. But I still will have to maybe favor, of course, Linares. But you can never take anything away from Crolla because we've seen him been the underdog as a world champion. He's come back to stop guys with body shots. So and he has a lot of heart, and he's going to come to fight. And I know he's not going to try to disappoint the crowd at home. So I'm looking forward to seeing that fight. But I slightly just give it to Linares in terms of overall skill and technique. But like I said, you can never count Crolla out.
Yeah, of course. And is there any other fights that you're looking forward to and want to give an opinion on?
I believe a fight was just announced between Turbo. Who was he? Before he had basically the winner had to fight Verdeo, but I forgot. Now I'm forgetting who they just announced that he was fighting. Before that.
That Petrov.
Yeah. Who's another tough Russian. He comes to fight. But that's going to be actually a good fight that people are probably not paying closely attention to as well because they're both good fighters. So that, like I said, Terry Flanagan versus Petrov, that's going to be another good fight. So the lightweight division may not get as much hype as maybe the welterweight division, but you can some of these guys in the division that I'm in are really good fighters, and a lot of good fights is going to be coming out coming up this year.
Absolutely, and I hope that your name's involved in a few of them.
Yes, I'm hoping for that too, and I'm pretty confident, and I'm pretty, like I said, once I get back on the ball, and I slip the Al, I'll probably fighting again another 3 to 4 months after this fight, just to get back on a fast track, and then we'll go from there. But I'm really excited as a fan for one to see all these great fights, overall in boxing, and then, like I said, especially with the Leo Santa Cruz and Carl Frampton, I fell in love with Carl Frampton as a fan, over the past few years, and I'm cool, and I'm very cool with Leo Santa Cruz, so that's a tough one for me, but, I'm excited to see this fight coming up, so, like I said, I always showed a lot of respect to a lot of the UK fighters out there, more and more talents coming out the UK, and I'm really excited because it makes boxing as a whole, great.
Yeah, it truly does. I've got to ask you now, who do you see winning that one? The main event on the weekend, Frampton Santa Cruz.
Oh man,
you dropped yourself. Mate. You dropped yourself.
Yeah, I know I did, man. I told you, it's tough. It's tough, and I'm kind of edging to, to Frampton, but I would love to see a rubber match, a trilogy. So, like I said, Frampton just has I love Frampton because he just has that great. He's a boxer, and that's me, I'm a pure boxer, and I just love his technique and form. But I believe Leo Santa Cruz has been saying he's gonna have a different approach. So I'm looking for a great fight. But like I said, you would have to lean more towards Frampton on this one as well.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. Okay, listen, Jamel, it's always a pleasure, my man. You know that yourself. Thank you so much for giving us a bit of your time. Best of luck for February 10th, and we'll catch up again very soon.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely catch up after this and see what's next. But it was always great talking with you, man. You take care out there.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part is the preview part where we're going to talk about the fights that are coming up this weekend. Now we're going to start with a card happening at the Fantasy Springs Casino in California, USA. Top of the bill over there, Francisco Vargas, 23-0 with 2 draws. A Mexican that really, he leaves it all in the ring. This guy can seriously fight, and he is a bit of a warrior. He takes on Miguel Berchelt, who is the guy that we spoke about just briefly. He took on George Jupp. We talked about that in the news. George Jupp fighting Mitchell Smith in the rematch. So Miguel Berchelt, very hard puncher, 30-1 his record, just the 1 loss. So of those 30 wins, he can seriously bang. He's got a lot of knockouts. Francisco Vargas, as I said, a bit of a warrior. Francisco Vargas putting his WBC World Super Featherweight title on the line. This is a fight that I think is coming at the right time for Berchelt, to be honest. I know that Berchelt has had the more fights, but I think Francisco Vargas, in the short career that he's had 25 fights. In that time, he has been in quite a few wars. He's been a bit too involved in some of his fights. And I think a fighter like Burchell, who can certainly bang, that's really his main tool. There's a possibility here that he could catch Francisco Vargas at the right time. But Francisco Vargas, at the same time, I'm not saying that he's on a downer or he's on bad form. He's been brilliant. You know, he can definitely drag you into a dogfight. And if that happens, then Burchell really hasn't been tested in that way. So definitely intriguing stuff on that fight there. Takashi Miura is also on the bill. His record 30-3 with 2 draws. He takes on Miguel Roman, who has a record of 56 wins and 11 losses. This one's at super featherweight for a 12-round contest, so I'm sure the winner of that will definitely be eyeing up the winner of Vargas and Burchelt. Also on the bill, Saddam Ali, 23-1. He looks to pick up his 24th career win. It's a 10-rounder at welterweight against Jorge Silva, 22-12-2, his record. Lamont Roach is also on the bill. He's 12-0 at the moment. He's in an 8-rounder at lightweight. That's really it for Fantasy Springs, to be honest, but another big fight card in the USA. This is the main fight card of the week for me anyway. A fantastic bill here. I'm going to start with the undercard. David Benavidez, 16-0. He takes on Sherali Mamajunov. I think I've got that right. His record 14-1. A decent little fight here, but David Benavidez seems to be a pretty good fighter. That's an 8-rounder at super middleweight, that one. Ivan Redkach is also on the bill. His record 19-2 with 1 draw. A good fighter, but you know, came up short against Tevin Farmer, who's a friend of the show, so we're definitely more friends with Tevin Farmer than we are Ivan Redkach, but he's a good fighter nonetheless, so that should be a decent fight. It's an 8-rounder at lightweight. Josh Taylor also on the bill, the Scot, who's really on form right now. A lot of banter between him and O'Hara Davis at the moment on Twitter. It's become quite spicy, it really has. Josh Taylor 7-0 at the moment. He takes on Alfonso Olveira, who has a record of 8-2 with 1 draw. It's a 10-rounder at super lightweight, 140. Josh Taylor looks to move to 8-0, and I'm sure he will. And there's 3 world title fights on this bill. That's what makes it brilliant. Lee Selby, 23-1. He takes on Jonathan Victor Barros, really experienced man, 41-4 with 1 draw. He's seen better days, but Lee Selby knows he cannot underestimate these type of opponents, especially when he's fighting over in the States. You know, he hasn't looked so solid in his recent few fights, Lee Selby, if we're being honest. He puts his IBF World Featherweight title on the line. 12-rounder. I cannot wait for this one. I really cannot wait for this entire card. Dejan Zlatikanin's on the bill. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but his record is 22-0. Again, that brilliant win that he got over Ricky Burns as well. He takes on a guest who was on our show last week, Mikey Garcia, 35-0. These guys combined records 57-0. Somebody's O's got to go. It's for the WBC World Lightweight Championship. Dejan Zlatikanin really seeming to be a good fighter, you know. Since that Ricky Burns win, he's just gone on and on and on, and he's been really impressive. He really has, and he can fight, I'm telling you. But Mikey Garcia, you know, a guy that was out the ring for quite a while. This is only his 2nd fight back from a long layoff, a really long layoff, many months, and it could be a little bit too quickly for him, in my completely honest opinion. Even though he got a stoppage win in his last fight, he didn't look overly impressive. He looked a bit rusty, I've got to be honest. I hope that Mikey Garcia can get the job done. You know, he's part of our show. He's on every single show. You know, he's the first, or he's the second voice that you listen to now when you turn the show on. The first voice is Michael Buffer. But, you know, Mikey Garcia, he's been there with us from day one. So we definitely wish him the best of luck. And it'll be brilliant if he can win the WBC world title, which will mean he'll become a freeweight world champion, which will be, you know, it's brilliant stuff. It really is. So Mikey Garcia is a brilliant fighter, but Zlatikanin's on form, so there's a lot of intrigue for that fight there. And top of the bill, Carl Frampton, 23-0. He's taken on Leo Santa Cruz, 32-1 with the 1 draw. It's for Leo Santa Cruz's old belt. It's currently Carl Frampton's. It's the WBA Super World Featherweight Championship. Carl Frampton and Leo Santa Cruz, as last year they had one of the fights of the year. Carl Frampton become Ring Magazine's Fighter of the Year, mainly because of that win. Obviously, of course, of the win over Scott Quigg as well in early last year. Ayaz, the first fight was brilliant. I think that Carl Frampton just nicked it. Some people feel that Leo Santa Cruz just nicked it. It was a brilliant fight. Nobody can say that it wasn't. This time around, Ayaz, talk to me. How is this fight going to go, in your opinion?
I personally reckon it's going to be a much wider decision to Frampton. I reckon Frampton's just going to box and move him. Definitely.
Do you think that, because remember last time, as I say, Carl Frampton and Leo Santa Cruz put on such a brilliant fight. A lot of rounds could have gone either way. You're saying that you reckon he's going to conclusively outpoint him. Do you reckon there's any chance he can get a stoppage over Leo Santa Cruz, or do you think Leo Cruz is just that tough that you can't see a stoppage here?
Leo Santa Cruz is that tough. I won't be able to see a stoppage. I can see a wide points decision.
Okay, so you can't see anything else, just a wide points one, yeah?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Carl Frampton, we know he's got dynamite sometimes in both hands, but I think Leo Santa Cruz is too much of a warrior. It's that Mexican blood in him that probably won't see him stopped. But I've heard some people predicting a Carl Frampton stoppage. Obviously, on last week's show, I had to ask Mikey Garcia, who do you think's going to win? First time round when we interviewed him, when he come on our show last year, sometime early last year. The first fight was coming around, and I said to him, who do you reckon's going to win? And he said he thought that Leo Santa Cruz was going to probably win against Carl Frampton. This time he's saying it's an absolute 50-50. He cannot give us a prediction winner. So, even people that like the biggest fans of Leo Santa Cruz are realising how much of a threat Carl Frampton has seemed to be to Leo Santa Cruz. Leo Santa Cruz, I don't actually think fought to the best of his ability in that last fight, and I actually don't think Carl Frampton fought to the best of his ability. They both, it's strange to say it, but because they both didn't fight to the best of their ability, in my personal opinion, it made for such a brilliant fight. I've seen Carl Frampton a lot sharper than that. He was brilliant. Don't worry, don't get me wrong. He was brilliant, but he stayed in the pocket sometimes a little bit too long, Carl Frampton. And I know that, he's a shorter man, he's a smaller man physically, he's coming up in weight. But I think this time around, I think he's had time to fill into the weight almost. I think we're going to see him a lot more solid. I really, really do. I really, really do. And I think that Leo Santa Cruz is going to probably be on the end of a wide points decision. I really think he's going to probably lose this on points, in my honest opinion. I think Carl Frampton is going to just have a little bit too much for him. I think that Shane McGuigan is on fire right now, and I think that he's the man. He's the man right now. He's the young trainer of world boxing, you can almost say. I think he's going to come with a much better plan. They know Leo Santa Cruz very well now. I like the fact that there's a lot of respect between both men. It's great sportsmanship on show every single time we see them close up. So, a lot, it's great to see all the respect there. Not the respect that we've seen between Scott Quigg and Carl Frampton. But, I cannot wait. I really cannot wait for this one Saturday night, which I'm so looking forward to. Absolutely cannot wait. But that's really it for the previewing. So before we welcome our first guest, there's a little segment that has escaped us for a little while. There was a little while we were doing every week. We were bringing you in with the funniest names that we could find that were fighting that week or had fought that week. And then for a while we couldn't find any funny ones, and we thought we can't keep doing this every week. But we've actually found some decent fighters this week. There's a fight happening. It's already took place, sorry. This one was in the Hilton Hotel in South Korea. A man who was on the wrong end of a split decision over 4 rounds. A man called Bum Lee. And he wasn't a bum, because he actually was 2-0. He was undefeated going into this fight. He actually fought a guy who was 7-4. And a lot of people thought Bum Lee was going to get the win here. But it wasn't to be his night. It really, really wasn't. And also, a card that took place over in USA. This one was in the Masonic Temple in Detroit, Michigan. A man who we should mention, a man called Jacob Boners, was in a 4-rounder. I don't really know how, I can't remember what his result was now, but he fought a guy who had 0 wins. So we hope that Jacob Boners come through that pretty strong. Also, over in Canada, there was a name that stuck out to me. No pun intended about the Boner name. But there was a guy over in Canada, Ayaz Hussein, which I'm convinced Ayaz is some sort of relative of yours. We've seen him go through his career unbeaten until just recently he actually lost. But he's actually in an 8-rounder this weekend. So Ayaz Hussein is 11-1. He takes on a guy who's 16-4. It's at super lightweight. Ayaz, that's even around about your weight category. I think that deep down, this man's related to you.
No way.
Also, in Indonesia this week, a man called Handsome Tiger. Handsome Tiger. He's taking on a guy called Famfa Nduwai. Now, you know, Handsome Tiger probably is going to win it this week. He's boasting a record of 7-0. This one's a 6-rounder at bantamweight. I think that's it for the funny names. I got a feeling there might be one more somewhere. Give me just 1 second. Oh, no, this one actually is not a funny name, but this one is a surname, Ayaz, that I cannot believe is real. Okay, this guy's surname has, let me just count that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 characters in his surname. So I'm going to have a crack at this, Ayaz. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to your screen. I'm actually, we can both have a crack at it, but how would you say this name is pronounced, Ayaz? And I'll give you a minute here. This is a name that simply, he needs a nickname. If he's ever going to become a good fighter, he needs a nickname. How would you pronounce that name?
The name is Manot Siti M Sakanakon Panom.
I would actually pronounce that as Manop. We're happy with Manop. That's his first name, Manop. Easy. But the surname, I'd say that is Sifium Saknak Honpanom. Yeah. Probably the similar sort of pronunciation as your one. But yeah, that name definitely needs to be shortened if he's ever going to go anywhere in the sport. His record at the minute is 0 wins and 3 losses. It's always these guys with the funny names who have got such bad records. It really is. And I think there's one last one left. It's a guy in Japan, actually. His first name is Shota and his second name is Kobayashi. Anyone who's called Kobayashi, possibly some sort of connection with Kobayashi porcelain, definitely gets a shout out here. I've always said that Al Heyman is the Kaiser Soze of the boxing world, and we've got a Kobayashi as well just to join him. It'd be brilliant if those two joined up, and somehow he managed to get in that ever-growing Al Heyman stable. But the winner, I'm definitely the winner I've got to give it to for this week for the funny name fighter has to be Handsome Tiger. So I think we're gonna have to give him a round of applause. So if we put our mics down and give it a little clap. So if you join me, Ayaz. Excellent stuff. Well done, Handsome Tiger. 7-0. We wish him all the best over in Indonesia on this weekend. And that's really it for part 2. That's all the rambling done. We've done part 1. We've done the review. We've done the news. Part 2. We've done the preview. We've done the funny name segment. It's returned. You might have liked it. You might have hated it. I'm sorry if you hated it. I hope you liked it. Let us know on Twitter at BoxHard Podcast. There's one last thing to do before we end part 2 and end the show essentially, and that is to welcome, as always, our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a man that's only been a pro for 4 months, and in that time he's already 3-0. It's of course Mr. Sonny Edwards. Sonny, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure, my man. Now, Sonny, each week on our show, we talk about the latest boxing news. We intentionally left out your piece of news so that you could tell our listeners yourself. So, Sonny, what piece of news have you been involved in today, my friend?
Well, I'm pleased to announce that I have signed a long-term promotional contract with Frank Warren and the Queensbury Promotions. I will still be under the guidance of MTK, Matt and I, formerly known as Maplin's Gym Marbella, so still the same management, but I'm just looking forward to getting pushed in the right direction by Frank Warren and Box Nation BT Sport.
Excellent stuff, man. Excellent stuff. I was going to ask you if you were still involved with MGM or MTK managerially, so that is the case, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
They'll still be managers for, well, as long as I can have them, really, until they get bored of me and get rid of me.
Brilliant, brilliant. So you've signed with Frank Warren. Frank has been on form this week, with signings coming out of his ears and huge announcements as well. How excited are you for your future with Frank Warren?
Well, I'm in a brilliant place right now. Obviously, I've got a big, strong support from MTK behind me. And with the Frank Warren promotions, like Queensbury Promotions, MTK and Frank Warren, they work very well together. Like at the back end of last year, you saw a few of the smaller shows. Back then, MGM Scotland had I think it was the Paisley Centre, was live on Box Nation. So I think then the ballpark number is about 32 to 36 shows promoted by Frank Warren will be broadcasted live in 2017, which is just an absolute massive amount. It's just great for TV exposure, good for the boxers on the book, and when obviously making a decision and sort of summing up the options, I think, don't quote me, but I think that's around double what Matchroom are offering. And don't get me wrong, Matchroom are such a great stable, but when you've got so many boxes, there's only so much TV time there. So I think for the better option for me, definitely going down the Frank Warren route.
And I've got to ask you this, Sonny. You've, at the minute you've been sort of fighting once a month, if you like. Have you got any inkling at the minute to when you're next out?
I'm not sure of too much I can say, because obviously there's still things to go through. But I'm looking to be out in London in around the May time. Okay. That's my first TV show. Obviously nothing's confirmed yet, but that's sort of what we're getting pushed towards. And I've also been told that there's a higher chance of getting out before that. I say around March, so now I've got about 7 weeks for that, and then I'll have another 7 weeks on to the next fight.
Brilliant stuff. And I've got to ask you this as well. I remember actually having a conversation with your brother Charlie a while before you turned pro, and he just sort of said, when you was ready to turn pro, which at the time you wasn't a pro, you were still amateur, he said that he'd expect Eddie Hearn to sign you. I just had to ask you, was there any approach from Eddie Hearn or nothing at all?
It's simple as really. When I first turned over, we had a little speak, and it sort of got. I signed straight away with MTK. They look after me an unreal amount. They support me. They're guiding my career. They're getting me good fights, tough fights early on. But obviously, they think I'm very capable. They've obviously just landed this very, very good contract with Warren. I'm getting looked after from the off. I'm in a position where I can train full time. I can just live boxing. And obviously I pay my 15%, as does every other boxer. That's the standard rate to MTK. So I'm going to let them manage me how they manage me. And if they tell me that they think that going down the Warren BT Box Nation route is better for me, I'm going to listen to them. Otherwise, I might as well manage myself and go to somewhere else. Don't get me wrong. Of course, there's like a pull factor with Eddie Hearn, Sky Sports. Everyone thinks it's reliable, but now I think BT Sport has completely turned on its head, and the 2017 is going to be so exciting to see how the public grasp onto regular shows. I believe, don't quote me in saying it again, but BT Sport seems to be showing full cards, like when they've had the UFC and stuff on there, they show they show all the undercards, you know what I mean? They show more hours, maybe than Sky Sports will usually put on about 3 hours from 8 to 11, or that's only about 4 or 5 fights max. So I think it's good all round for the boxers to be with Warren right now.
Fair enough. And it has to be said, Sonny, and I don't want to cause any grief, but Frank Warren's already got another flyweight by the name of Prince Patel. Now you're stablemates.
He's got loads.
He's got we got to bring Prince Patel's name into it. Now you're stablemates.
That's one of the biggest reasons I want to go with Frank Warren, so I can get that fight as soon as possible. Southern area title, English title, Tesco meal deal, whatever it is, I would love to box him. It would not matter any rounds. Obviously, I'd like to get him in the 10, 12 rounds. Maybe for even a Southern area title would be bang on, because obviously we're both from the south. Apart from Charlie, he's obviously my brother, that sort of rules him out really. There's not really anyone else from London flyweight of any merit. I think Sammy Cantwell, I'm not sure if he's still boxing. But you know what I mean? That's definitely a fight I'd absolutely love. I'm sure a lot of people would get behind that. A bit of TV time, a bit of media. But I'm open to that fight, and actually I'm gunning for that fight. Whenever it comes up, I'll snatch it with both hands. Ever since I turned pro, before I turned pro, I've been asking for that fight. I was meant to be entering the same weight as him in the amateurs. The year I won my senior ABA title, he turned pro 3 weeks or a month before, or something silly like that. But yeah, there's so much needle there, and there's a genuine dislike between both of us. It's mutual. Don't get me wrong, he puts himself across as a bit of a bellend, but everyone knows why he's doing it. He's trying to sort of, be that controversial, get people talking about him, and it's worked to a certain extent. But when you rob Brett Fido, who deserved to draw bang on the money when it was 39-38 on a home show, come on, we all know what that means. And then I went on to beat Brett Fido. When he gets an actual draw against the Spanish journeyman, don't get me wrong, I agree he's tough, and Charlie didn't have it all his own way of him, but Charlie put him down twice, I believe. He won every round, So it's like, yeah, you're speaking all this, you've gone quiet now because obviously not all the results gone your way. And from what it looks from the outside looking in, obviously I don't know his personal dealings with Frank Warren, but he's not been on no big shows, he's got no coverage. He's been boxing in, where is it, like Harwich or Norwich or somewhere, somewhere nowhere. So I would love that fight, but whether it happens or not, whether he'd take it or not, is a different story.
I actually thought that now, being both under the Frank Warren banner, that we might see some sort of friendship between you both now.
What, sparring partners, yeah? Travelling around the world together? Nah, I don't think so. Because you've got to remember, there's, just on the Frank Warren books, if we're talking fly and super fly, if we're being like a bit facetious there, you've got me, you've got Paddy Barnes, you've got, obviously he's at MGM as well, you've got Joe Mafosa, who I box in the amateurs, good fighter. You've got, obviously, Prince Patel. Then you've got a new kid, 5-0, Brad Foster. I've never heard of him, but I see him popped up. I think he signed. Then obviously you got Kevin Satchel, there's quite a few out there.
Yeah.
And being on the same promoter just makes them fights a lot easier to happen. And personally, I think being a flyweight in Warren's stable seems a lot more exciting than being a flyweight in Eddie Hearn's, because the only one I can think of off the top of my head is my brother. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's got another flyweight. No. So, just sort of makes sense to me, really.
Kauya fight comes to mind, but...
Superfly, yeah.
No, but you're right. I think Warren's got a lot more guys around those type of weights, to be honest. So, yeah, you're right in what you're saying. I've got to ask you, how is Charlie doing, Sonny? I haven't spoken to him for quite a while. Obviously, we were both at his last fight, me and you, sitting together for a little moment.
Do you know, that's funny, that I ain't spoke to him much either. Ever since he's been with Adam Booth's boys, he sort of don't pick up the phone anymore.
Oh, well, way before that, didn't he?
He's flying.
He closed the year on a high, obviously, in the end.
Yeah.
Any idea when he's back out at all?
I'm not too sure. If I was guessing, I'd say March, late March, early April, somewhere around that time. I'm looking forward to seeing his development under Adam. Obviously, we don't train together. We live 250 miles away. We speak most days, though. Don't get me wrong. And from the videos he's shown me, he looks like he's coming on nice and well, getting more relaxed, which he definitely needs to do. I think he's had that sort of criticism throughout his career. He's a bit not uptight, but he sort of looks agitated. He looks always on the move. He looks trying to use his work rate constantly. Don't get me wrong, you'll struggle to find a harder trainer or fitter boxer out there than him, but he tries to use every inch of that fitness, which can get predictable and it can leave you open. And if someone else is conditioned as well and they don't fall off, so it would be nice to see how Adam Booth, who I think is a master tactician, who gets their game plan right 9 times out of 10 from just results. They speak for themselves, but I'm looking forward to seeing him out, seeing how he's progressed.
Yeah, me too. Adam Booth is a brilliant trainer, definitely. Finally, I just wanted to get your opinion on a couple of upcoming fights. I got 2 for you. I know one that you definitely be watching. I know that you're a bit of a fan of Carl Frampton. You're going to be staying up on the weekend for him in Santa Cruz?
I don't know, really. I might just, what I seem to be doing more these days, because I've been training every single day at early camp. I usually sort of try and wake up, find it without looking at the result, and then having a little crackdown at about 8, 9 in the morning. But just, don't get me wrong, I think Carl Frampton's a fantastic fighter. I think probably one of the best Britain has to offer, if we can claim him as British. I don't know how he stands on that. But obviously, Ireland, fantastic fighter. But my problem is more with his opponent. It might be quite controversial. I think he's been sold to be a lot better than he possibly is. Personally, that's my personal opinion. I think if Frampton was to really win me over, he'd jump in someone like Rigondeaux. You know what I mean? When they both had titles. But that's just me personally. And I don't know, I just think it's going to be very similar to the last fight, sort of nip and tuck, but then sort of Frampton sort of getting down at the stretch and sort of outboxing him. Which, really, for the money you'd be getting paid for it, and he knows the opponent now, shared 12 rounds with him. Yeah, I think he'll definitely come away the winner again. I don't see Santa Cruz bring anything but high work rate and, you know what I mean, a high pace. And it didn't really phase him too much the first time, so will it phase him the second time? I'm not too sure.
Yeah. And the other fight I've got to ask you about, I've been asking this to everyone, it doesn't really matter which weight you're in or anything, Anthony Joshua, Vladimir Klitschko.
Oh, first and foremost, I know he's got the name Klitschko, but I don't think he deserves a shot really at a world title after coming off a loss. That's my first opinion on that fight. And my second is his confidence is a massive thing, and the way he's not been back in the ring, coming off a loss, like a frustrating loss as well, because I know a lot of people sort of sang Tyson Fury's praises, and like they was like fascinated that he dethroned this sort of formidable opponent in Klitschko. And I don't get me wrong, I like moving and boxing, but it was just like Klitschko weren't asked for the first 10 rounds. I only started throwing punches in 11 and 12. Caught him once or twice, and that was the fight over. He blinked and you missed it. Like, so I don't know. I think Joshua, if he lands and lands again, I think Klitschko will fall apart. But you can't write Klitschko off because he has got the dynamite in both hands. It's just whether I think Joshua is a bit too sharp, a bit too strong, a bit too fresh for Klitschko. And I think that'll pay complete dividends.
It's a tough one, man. I mean, for me anyway, I think that obviously Klitschko was the man, and then Fury dethroned him, as you said, and then with Fury's absence now, we still got a kind of, without Fury at the minute in the picture, you've got to kind of say who's the man then. Well, really, it's sort of got to be Klitschko, isn't it? Because he's only lost to a guy who's no longer boxing at the minute. So without Tyson Fury there, he's kind of still the man to beat. So,
but I think Joshua beats Fury. I think when Fury gets caught a couple of times, because what I've seen Joshua spar hundreds of rounds. I was on GB. I mean, I've known Joshua for years.
Yeah.
I've seen him train. I've seen like how he keeps himself in the body, and he's only had one shaky moment really in his career. That's when Dillian Whyte caught him. He'll be the first one to admit that. And Dillian Whyte's a good friend of mine. I really like Dillian Whyte. I get on with him very well. But he got caught chasing a quick knockout. He got sort of wrapped up in the whole sort of the bravado of it all. And he got caught with a brilliant left hook. And that sort of swayed the fight massively. But really, I don't see Fury beating Joshua. So therefore, I'm down with Joshua against Klitschko.
Yeah. Well, fair point. We'll have to wait and see anyway, but it's definitely a fight that I'm excited for, you're excited for, and the whole boxing world's excited for, to be honest.
Oh, of course, it's got a little buzz around it these next couple of months, isn't it?
Definitely, man, definitely. But listen, Sonny, I just want to thank you so much for giving us a piece of your time. We'll definitely keep
no worries
for what's next with you, and I wish you all the best for the future, but no doubt we'll speak again soon anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a wrap. This has been episode 67. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A big thank you to our two guests on this week's show, Jamel Herring and Sonny Edwards. I'd like to wish them both the best of luck for what's ahead in their respective careers. The biggest thanks of all goes out to the listeners that tune in each and every week. Remember, you can get in touch with us on Twitter at BoxHard Podcast. And if you've got 10 spare seconds, please leave us a review on iTunes. It's all appreciated. Wherever you are, I hope that you've enjoyed this bite-sized boxing freebie. We'll be back next week with another big show as per usual. Until next time, my friends, take care.